Who was Bruce Friedman?
Oh, God. Bruce was a lot of things.
He was passionate. He was passionate for the poor, the disadvantaged, and the disenfranchised.
A client who was in a horrible situation and had no resources and whose life might have seemed really unmanageable. He never judged them, and he never let us judge them. He viewed their problems as our problems.
Most significantly, he was a real inspiration about how and why we as lawyers should help make our communities better. Bruce was my first legal supervisor. I had an internship with New Hampshire Legal Assistants, and they assigned me to Bruce, who had very long hair, John Lennon glasses, and was scary. But he got me hooked on legal assistance. He gave me more responsibility than I thought I was ready to handle, and I apparently performed fairly well. And I think that's how he dealt with law students while he was here. I mean, he just gave them a lot to do and expected they would do it.
He was a civil procedure teacher. So we all had him first semester. High energy, intense kind of people, but sort of disorganized. We used to laugh about Bruce saying, you know, there are 4 things that you need to remember about this. A, B, 4, and then move on. And we would say, well, hang on, that's, whether you're using numbers or letters, that's still not 4 things.
It's a Friedman energy. There's no other energy like it, and I think the students really fed off that energy. He was always willing to be creative and innovative, and at the same time not be apologetic.
You know, he's an interesting teacher. He's kind of a crazy guy. He would come in with like horns and trumpets. He would do sword fights in the front of the room. I mean, I don't know. That was like beyond my. That always used to make me a little nervous.
When I started at Franklin Pierce, I expected to be studying business and contracts, and then I did the clinic with Bruce, and everything changed. I remember the summer that I was doing the civil practice clinic, I don't ever remember him not being there. You know, no matter what time of day I was in the clinic or in the school, he was there. But I just remember it didn't matter what was happening. If I went into his office with a question, he knew the file, he knew the client, he knew the history, he knew the opposing counsel, he knew what the orders said. He didn't have to stop and pull the file and read it and figure out what you were talking about. He had this amazing capacity to just keep track of all of that, which is, I think, part of what made the clinic so successful. Is these files could be handed from student to student because Bruce was there.
There was one thing I could change about my law school education, it would be that I would have taken the family law clinic with Bruce Friedman and Ellen Mazinski. They were the foundation of the clinical program here, the two of them, 2 very different people with the same passion. And there'd be no clinical program here at the school that even rivaled what it is now if it wasn't for Bruce Friedman and Ellen Mazinski.
You know, we've all had those experiences of teachers or coaches who had tremendously high expectations, and by the force of their personality, they compelled us to rise to those expectations. And Bruce was one of those people. He set the bar very high. He had very high expectations, and because of his absolute conviction that we were all capable, we all tried. We all reached, and we all tried to meet those expectations, whether it was in the classroom or in the clinic.
I think his primary principle was, I will serve the people, especially the children of this state. That's the primary thing I learned from Bruce, is that if you've got a client and that client doesn't have what other people have in society, give them all the power, all the skill, and everything that you have to further their cause.
He would accept cases, he'd bring it to me. I'd review the material. I'd say, Bruce, there's no way you can win this case. He'd say, yeah, you're right. Then he'd take it. And I had trouble understanding that for a long time. But he made a lot of people feel that he cared about them, and he did.
I remember going to court with him, and opposing counsel on the case was just awful. It was a parenting case, and she was extraordinarily aggressive. I think not entirely honest with the court. And I remember Bruce putting his hand on my arm as I was like ready to climb across the table, and just never letting her get him worked up. And in the long run, it all worked out very well for our client. I mean, he obviously knew how to handle it. He was the pro. But that I remember very vividly, and that has stayed with me always, that, just stop. Just don't play that game.
Bruce ran the clinic, but I did it, the students did it. I mean, we prevented a lot of homelessness. We helped innumerable people get Social Security and unemployment. But he had a guy, his name was Jerry. He was a really, really nice guy who had significant mental health challenges, probably sustained in the Vietnam War. And Bruce stuck with him for years so that Jerry got to see his kids. Without Bruce, he would have lost all contact. And just nice guy whose life had taken a sad turn.
He was doing the big class action lawsuit for children in New Hampshire, specifically children who had been subject to real adversity within the DCYF system. He was suing DCYF in the state of New Hampshire in a class action case. I think it was In re Eric L. Ultimately, that case settled because of all the work the students and Bruce put into it, and children were protected at a much higher level than they had been before. And that lawsuit doesn't happen without Bruce Friedman at the helm. It doesn't happen without the students who invested hours upon hours in the preparation of that very complicated federal case. That was Bruce. Bruce would grab a hold of a cause and just go after it like no one else.
He had a family, and he was, for a busy man, he was great with his kids. He was home for dinner all the time. He went to their sports. He found time somehow to take on this class action. He didn't sleep. I mean, Bruce really, and like a lot of times I actually think about it, whether he would have lived longer if he slept he slept 3 or 4 hours a night.
If we could all have it back, and we could all potentially say, hey, Bruce, let's get it a little more balanced, I don't think it would have changed a thing.
I didn't want to stay in the job that I was at. And a friend of mine had I guess she was already working at New Hampshire Legal Assistance. And she told me that the supervising attorney for family law at Legal Advice and Referral Center had left or was about to leave, and that Lark was going to be hiring. So I sent my resume and a letter to the then executive director. And what I was told for a long time was that part of the reason that Connie hired me is the only way she could get Bruce to stop calling her. So while I didn't see him after graduation, I'm told that he was instrumental in me getting the job here. So that he pestered Connie until she hired me, which I have always been eternally grateful for as I sit here 23 years later.
I don't think I ever would have been a clinical teacher without Bruce Friedman in my life. He and Ellen, I have to give Ellen a lot of credit, were really great examples to me of what it means to advocate for those who really are disenfranchised, disadvantaged, looked upon in a negative way by society, and really need that voice that you can give them as a lawyer.
Future students, I mean, if you can leave law school feeling that you can have a good life and help other human beings in their lives, you've made a good choice becoming a lawyer, and you'll have a good career.